So here is our video on World War II Part 3, which is much shorter than the two previous videos that you've all been complaining about because they're awful, 9 minutes long. So for this time, you're going to make a timeline again, and you want 3 different colors. One if it was positive for the Allies, one if it was positive for the Axis powers, and one if it was neutral. So we're going to begin with the Axis forces attacking North Africa. In September of 1940, Mussolini went into North Africa and attacked Egypt, which is important because remember we just learned about the age of imperialism, and Egypt was a British colony, and Britain was an Allied power. The Suez Canal is also a crucial location because it was a gateway to oil fields of the Near East or Mid-East, and Britain struck back in December. They took 130,000 Italians prisoners of war, and Hitler had to go help Mussolini and his buddies out. So here shows you just some of the various battles that were taking place between Egypt and Libya. And the Suez Canal was very important because it connects the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. It makes it possible to go from Europe to Asia without having to go around Africa. And this was built in 1869 during that age of imperialism. During these North African battles, there was a German tank force known as the Afrika Korps or the Deutsches Korps, and they began attacking in March of 1941. And the British forces had to retreat all the way back to Tobruk in Libya, and these lines go back and forth. The Germans were led by Erwin Rommel, who was known as the Desert Fox. I'll give you some story here on Rommel. He was a decorated officer from World War I, where he became known for his service in the Italian front, where he even did things like led troops on skis. In World War II, he already commanded the 7th Panzer Division during the invasion of France in 1940. He was known and respected by both his troops and by his enemies as being a humane officer. In other words, he was not responsible for committing any war crimes, nor were his troops. He ignored orders to kill Jewish soldiers, to kill civilians, or POWs. And in fact, he was later linked to a conspiracy to kill Hitler. Hitler knew, however, executing Rommel would give him, he wouldn't look unfavorable by his people who respected Rommel. So he ordered Rommel to commit suicide by taking a cyanide pill, and in return, his family would not be persecuted. He then gave Rommel a state funeral, which was attended by many people. Rommel actually asked to not have any political paraphernalia attached to his body during this funeral, but Nazis were sent there to put swastikas on his uniform. Anyway, in January of 1942, Rommel had to retreat back to the starting point of these battles, and by June, Rommel then pushed back. So these lines are going back and forth, and Libya and seized Tobruk, which was a big loss for the Allies. However, eventually, it did become a victory for the Allies, and it was the first major victory of British forces over Germany. Now the war continues into the Balkans. Germany sends troops to Romania and Bulgaria to aid Italy and to attack Greece by the east. Greece and Yugoslavia resisted, but they fell, and the invasion of Yugoslavia, for some random facts, was nicknamed Operation 25. Now let's go to Operation Barbarossa, which began in the end of June of 1941, which was Germany invading the Soviet Union, which the Soviet Union was unprepared for at first. Germans went in about 500 miles to the east. The Soviets practiced scorched earth policy, which was done since the days of Napoleon, where as they retreated, they scorched the land so that the Germans could not use that land for supplies or resources. About 4 million Axis powers invaded the Soviet Union over an 1,800-mile front. 95% of all German casualties between 1941 and 1944 were in Operation Barbarossa. And the failure here became a turning point for the Third Reich. It was the largest military operation in the world in terms of both manpower and casualties. Now, the Atlantic Charter, we haven't talked about the United States yet, but this is where the U.S. begins to get involved. It has not yet joined the war, but this is where it sets its post-war goals, where you see FDR in the middle, meeting with Churchill there on the left, about people having their self-sovereignty, which is very important. Okay, password is Fox. See you next class.